Right then, we've made it to city centre here in Cork. It is absolutely lashing outside there, but there's one man who we always want to talk to in the week of a Cork All-Ireland, and that is the great Dr. Con Murphy. Dr. Con, how are you keeping?
I'm keeping good. I'm retired. Still keep in touch with the teams. I was telling you, 1956, my father was chairman of the Cork County Board, and he brought me along to the final of Cork against Galway in football. And I was the mascot. And the joke in Cork among my friends is that I'm back where I started. But I enjoy it. It's good crack.
Is it only this time of the year that you get the call from a Pat Ryan? Is it when the real business starts to come into view?
I've been there from the start.
Right.
No, I'm not there every night at training, but a lot of them. It's a good social outlet when you're retired. That's the only other job I have. I'm an ambassador for the CUH Hospital for cancer, so that keeps me going as well. I have a golf classic in September. Brilliant. That'll be the fifth one ever.
It's amazing to consider, because I know that your son is doctor with the Cork team at the moment, and your father was stuck in with the team before you. So the chain of Murphys in your family must be almost a century long at this point.
Yeah, my father won a football All-Ireland in 1945. Right. He was full back on that team. No, I didn't quite make it on the teams, but I got involved in 1976 as doctor with the hurlers and footballers. My father was chairman of Munster Council, among other things, and unfortunately, up at the 73 All-Ireland hurling final between Limerick and Kilkenny, he was on his way to speak at the Limerick function that night. At 54 years of age, he dropped dead.
At the function that night after the All-Ireland?
Well,
on the way
to it. Yeah.
Wow.
So that was a big blow to us. Funnily, his brother, whom I'm called after, Father Con, he was in Nigeria. He died in 1945 when Cork won the All-Ireland football. My father didn't play in the semi-final because of it. They were all very shook. He was a young man, 28.
28? Yeah. In Nigeria?
In Nigeria, yeah.
When you go back to your father's time like that, he was obviously an unbelievably important figure in your life. Were you ever lucky enough to have the opportunity to see him play or to witness his sporting prowess?
I saw him play a club match once, 1956. He reformed a club in Cork called Lees, and they won the senior county last year. He was foot forward. It was either 55 or 56, but that's the only time I saw him play.
Because you were saying earlier on that he was living on Bear Island.
Yeah.
The travel, I mean, Mick O'Connell is the famous Islander who played GA, but I'm sure your father has similar stories.
Well, it's hard to believe. Himself and his brother Brendan, who was also involved with Cork, he was a sub in 1945. They used to row out in a 4-hour boat from Bear Island to the mainland. They used to cycle to Bantry. County Board would send a taxi to Bantry, and they got the train to Dublin.
Right.
The only difference when they came back was my grandfather used light a bush. So it's nowhere to land. There was no electricity until 56 or 57 in Bear Island.
Right.
So you talk about warm-ups.
Yeah. So a lot of your childhood was spent in Bear Island then, was it?
It was, yeah. I loved it. It's a great spot. I still go down there every year. There's 2 Bear Island men who won All-Ireland medals. Donal Hunt is the second. He won one in 1973.
So you moved from Bear Island to the city then?
No, I never lived in Bear Island.
Okay.
My father was a veterinary surgeon, and we lived on the Western Road.
Okay, I see.
He was the vet to the greyhound track, which got me interested in greyhounds, which actually led to me being with Cork, because in 1976, the night before Cork played Tip in the first round of the hurling championship, I was at the greyhound track with Jimmy Barry Murphy. I was working in Tralee Hospital at the time. I came up for the night, and I was with Jimmy when Dennis Conrad, the county board, asked me was I going to the match. And I said, I'm driving Jimmy. That's how different things were then. Jimmy was a sub. He said, we've no doctor. Would you stand in? So I did. And they asked me to stay on. Jimmy was on the football team. He went over and told Billy Morgan. Billy Morgan nearly had a fit because he said he's from a football family. His father owned a footballer, and he'll have to do the footballers.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing the two.
Wow.
What was interesting, Kerry beat Cork after a replay. I was working in Kerry. The Kerry fellas started coming into the hospital to me. Not that I was the new sentry or anything down there, but I was away to the X-ray machine.
Right.
And I got to know all of them, and Mick said, you might as well come along with us in the day. But there was no ticker or any of these fancy machines that time. No, people didn't really know I was there.
Yeah. How did Billy Morgan feel about you accepting Mick O'Dwyer's invitation?
He didn't find out, I'd say, at the time. It was later on he found out, I'd say.
Trying to do the job of those two jobs within Cork is really interesting. So 76, Christy Ring is manager around that time. Or Selector in 76.
76, 7 and 8.
Okay.
On the Tuesday before he died, I met him out in the COH hospital. He was visiting one of our players. And I said to him, what do you think about the 4 in a row? And he said, something always goes wrong. And unfortunately, he dropped it on the Friday. Huge loss. He did, yeah. He was a great man. I sat beside him for all the matches, mainly because I was in awe of him, but he got so excited, not everyone wanted to sit beside him.
He got so excited. He was
the matches.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
And he was in the prime of his health at that point as well.
He had no complaints at all. It was a huge blow to everyone.
How did that Cork setup react to that tragedy at the time?
It definitely affected us, you know. Say we played Galway in the semi-final and we lost. I've only cried twice after a match. I cried after the match. I was ditching John Horgan, who was crying. He's passed away a few years ago. He was captain of the team, going for 4 in a row. And he was split, and I was stitching him. But what was upsetting us, we knew it was the end of the line for the team as a group. It was a very close unit. And losing the 4 in a row, they were all pushing on anyway. It split up the whole thing. And it wasn't the same for a while after.
Christy Ring as selector is something that we don't know a whole pile about. The stories get passed down from generation to generation about him as a player. As a selector, other than the brilliant image you paint of him being very excited in match, what else was he like and what else did he bring to the setup?
Interestingly, he always wore his best suit and shirt and tie. And when we'd be leaving the dressing room, he stood at the door that we went out, and he held up one hand and he held up a hurley in the other hand. And he'd say, we're from Cork, remember that. And, I mean, there wouldn't be much point to me saying it, but when Christy Ring said it, the hairs stood up in the back of your head. And he had a great presence that way. He was very sharp in his judgment of players as well.
It's amazing. The judgment of players is something that some of the greats of certain sports have. It's something that John Giles always talks about. He's got as much respect for people who have the gift with the sport as he does of people who've got the knowledge of the sport. He used to say about his father had great knowledge of the sport, and he had so much respect for him for that. So Ring had both. He had the talent and he also had the knowledge and the talent identification, as maybe we'd call it today.
One of his favourite players was Sean O'Leary, corner forward. And one of my first jobs with Cork, the day before the All-Ireland final in 76, we had to do a fitness test on Shawnee because he had a cartilage injury. And right go wrong, Ringy was passing him. And he did pass him, you know. But he was in trouble at a half-time. And Ringy said to me, inject him. I said, it won't work. Go on, he said, he has to play. But he didn't. But he was this type of player.
Why is that? What was it about Shawnee that he loved so much?
Strength. Courage, got goals.
Got goals.
Yeah, yeah. He was a great match winner.
Yeah. Did you ever have the opportunity to see Ring play?
Oh, I did club matches.
Club matches.
Glen Rovers and UCC used to have great matches that time. And Ring used to be in the middle of it.
And he put in just as many iconic performances for the Glen as he would for Cork.
Absolutely. He never took it easy. My father always reckoned he could have played football for Cork as well, but he played for his club, but he didn't play with Cork.
It's amazing how the myth of Christy Ring has not only travelled from generation to generation, but also all around the country in a time prior to the internet and information being widely available. Yeah. Like the famous story in, can't remember what year it was, but in the 1960s when the Rackards carry Ring off the pitch shoulder high, even though Ring has lost the All-Ireland final, him being held up as a god in other counties around Ireland. How did that happen, do you think?
Well, he was a fantastic player and he won a load of matches for Cork on his own.
Yeah.
And he had no head about him. He was most down-to-earth, grounded, uncomplicated man. You mentioned the Rackards. My father was in the same class as Nicky Rackard.
Really?
So I met Nicky Rackard as a young fella. Nicky Rackard, people don't realise this, he played football for Leinster as well. And my father played for Munster and he marked him, even though they were great friends.
And how did your father get on against him, marking Nicky Rackard?
I'm not sure. Yeah. But I met Nicky Rackard a few times. He was like something out of Hollywood.
Really?
Yeah. Very impressive man, huge, big fellow, and great player.
It's so fascinating to me hearing this because there's such vague ideas in my head because there is no real visuals of it. And it's interesting to hear them both described as impressive people, like smart individuals, very well put together. There was something gentlemanly almost about the way in which they approached their lives.
There was. And they didn't have swelled heads or anything like that, you know. They just got on with it. And even though they bait each other around the park during the match, they always got on with it afterwards, you know.
It's amazing to consider that thread as the years go by and your involvement with Cork and Christy Ring, obviously one of the greats on the pitch and then as a selector for that 3 in a row.
Well, one of the things that made me happy in my first year with Cork, we beat Wexford and we came home to Cork on the Monday night. But my father, as chairman of the county board in his time, didn't get on that well with the Glen.
Right.
There was a few scrapes, and I wondered how Christy would take to me.
Okay.
As a result of that, I was a bit anxious about it. And the Monday night we came home after winning the first All-Ireland that I was involved in, I was walking up Patrick Street on my own. I was going back to work on Tralee the following day, and the traffic was closed, so I was walking up the middle of Patrick Street. Halfway up the street, I heard someone running behind me. I looked around. Who was it? Christy Ring. Murphy, great to have you. Bye. Thanks for coming.
Right.
I was 10 feet tall going home after that. Be accepted by him.
Unbelievable feeling.
Yeah, it was.
Because I was going to actually make the comparison there between himself and JBM, how you have these legends of the game who then go onto the sideline and lead Cork, almost a sense of duty that they have, that even though they've hung up the hurl, it's not enough. They have to go back out and give something back.
Oh yeah, well, I roomed with JBM for the 10 years, 76, 86. Went to Shelburne Park every Saturday night, had a pint or two on the way home. I slept well. When he came back in then as manager, we had great fun. But one story, I don't know whether I should tell it or not, but that time to win the All-Ireland in 99, we had to play only 4 matches. And the first 3, Neil Ronan, he was on the team, and Alan Brown replaced him. And the Sunday before we played the final against Kilkenny, Jimmy said to me, what do you think about the team? We had a point in our local. And I said, would you think of starting Alan Brown rather than bringing him in and bringing Neil Ronan? Yeah, good idea, he says. Yeah, I think you might be right there. First patient into me the following morning by complete accent was Alan Brown. Couldn't keep my mouth shut. I said, Brownie, you won't believe this, but you're starting. He did somersaults in the surgery. I went down to training that night. Jimmy called the team in to call out the team. No Alan Brown. I said to Jimmy, what do you have to do to me? He says, I'm superstitious. Why change it? So from that day on, I never wanted to know the team from anyone. Kept my mouth shut.
That's the best way to be.
Yes.
They obviously trust you, though, and every single Cork manager has trusted you, even like by dint of the fact that you're in there this week. And look, as a legend of Cork GAA, I'm sure you're nothing but a positive influence for the team on weeks like this. But the fact that the phone keeps ringing and that you're still a man who they call on, do you feel that you're trusted? Does that make you kind of feel that that's an accomplishment in one way, given how you deal with patients and with the men?
I suppose that's a fair comment. I'd have a good sense of humour, which is useful around the place at times. And I know how to cool the fellas down, or I can read guys. So that's about all I do. I leave the medical side of it to others now.
At the same time, it is quite a medical accomplishment, the breadth of time that you spent with Cork teams, given the information that was available to doctors when you started, and given the information available to doctors now. And the world of medicine in sport has changed incredibly decade upon decade.
Yeah, I marvel at the amount of injuries we have today compared to when I started. In my first 10 years with the Cork Hurling team, we had one cartilage operation, nothing else. And the first time I heard of a crusade was in 1982 with Passplan. And there is nearly an epidemic now. I find it hard to understand. We do train a lot harder. I mean, the game has got way more serious with the passing of time. It's nearly full on now for fellas.
Is it a case that there are more cruciate injuries, or that lads just played with torn cruciates 50 years ago unbeknownst to themselves?
Oh, without a doubt, we missed them before. And I know of fellas who have played with cruciate, but in today's game, it would be the exception. Yeah. The minute we find a cruciate now, he gets it repaired and loses minimum of 6 months.
Was that an earth-shattering moment as a doctor in the 1980s when you first happened upon a cruciate injury in sport? Like, was that a game-changing moment for your profession?
It was a game-changing moment for my knowledge as well. Yeah. Because when I called out to see Pat, I got him into the hospital and they opened up his knee completely. There was no keyhole or MRI that time. And they told him he'd torn his cruciate. So I called out to see him that night. He was very upset. And I said, what's the story? He said, I tore my cruciate. And I said, you tore your what? Just being honest. Yeah. He went home to Temple Now and he tracked down his uncle in Glasgow. And that's how he started off.
Because he tells the story in his book there the year before last about how Miko was there for him when very few others were, in the Kerry setup, that is, when he did his cruciate. And it's the first time I've considered this now, listening to you speak. I wonder was part of that because of our lack of knowledge of the injury, and people just thought, geez, this fella's finished. This is an absolutely horrifying injury that he's after suffering. They're after opening up his knee, as you say, whereas today they do it with keyhole. I wonder, was there a sense of the alien or the horrifying about what Spillane suffered, and that's kind of why some of his teammates left him be and didn't really check in as much as he would have liked?
I think there's a certain amount of truth in that. I think they thought they wouldn't see him anymore.
Yeah.
Good luck, Pat.
Yeah.
But he came back, won 3 All-Irelands afterwards. and sort of paved the way for future crusades. I think Brian Hurson was the first man in Dublin to start doing them as a speciality. And we played Kerry in the Munster final recently, and when I was coming out to get my car, I bumped into one of the Kerry lads, Barry Dan O'Sullivan.
Yeah, he's gone through the same thing.
20 minutes into the game, and he working as a vet. It's a big setback to him, but that's how common it is, that everyone knew it was cruciate. Yeah. When he did it.
You've illustrated brilliantly a couple of compelling characters. I did want to ask you again just about Mick, sadly passed away this year, obviously. But how much of an effect did Mick have in you spending that amount of time in Kerry? Was that the real draw for you, spending time with that team?
Well, I thought it was very good of him to accept me.
Okay.
At the start.
Yeah.
One funny story, Ger Power was captain one year, and he came up and he stayed with my mother. He had a torn hamstring. And we had a lady, Frances Walsh, who worked in the CUH, who was considered excellent at treating hamstrings. And he spent a week with her. Hard to believe that on the Friday before the match, myself and Ger went out to the dike to see how he was. No one from Kerry came up. He took one run. I said, "You're out." I said, "You're not right." He said, "Look, I'm captain of the team. If I don't go out first, I don't get the cup." He said, "Inject it," which I hadn't done before, but I gave him a local anaesthetic like you get in your tooth. He took one run. He said, "That's magic." So I went up and I did it. He lasted 20 minutes in the match, and he scored a point, and at half-time I said he was gone. And that was against Roscommon. And if you remember, Mikey scored a goal before half-time. And I met Mikey inside Ned Jackson. I said, "Great goal there, Mikey." He said, "What goal?" I said, "That goal you got before half-time." He's looking at me as if I had two heads. I went out and I called Mick on. He says, "What is it now?" Having told him Power he was gone. I said, "Mike, you don't remember scoring the goal?" He said, "Tell him we'll show it to him tomorrow." Yeah. That was the concussion protocol that time. But we got on great. He never interfered with anything I did or said.
Yeah.
I didn't say much now, but
it's
I found him easy to deal with. Yeah.
I can imagine. We've charted some of the greats of Cork hurling. One of the things that we don't know for sure just yet is the greatness of this current Cork team, because their stories are still being written. I think this county and the city has a lot of respect for Pat Ryan. He's obviously gone through a lot of personal tragedy in the not too distant past. And I think the whole country wants him to do it. What have you seen from Pat Ryan's perspective over the last couple of years in terms of the man that he is?
He's bonded extremely well with the team. They have a great time for him. And they'd love to win it for him, if nothing else. And I think the pain we felt after last year, I hope, will stand to us this year. I mean, we know what it's like to lose by a point. So I think they'll be going all out to win it for him, apart from themselves. There's a very good atmosphere in the camp.
It seems that there's been a good atmosphere around this whole team since the middle of last summer. Have you seen a buzz around Cork hurling quite like this over the last 15 months, let's say?
No, it's amazing. I think the crowd that turned up in Dublin for the Cork-Dublin hurling match was the biggest Cork crowd at a match ever, you know. I reckon there was 60,000 Cork people at it. And what I've noticed is the young people have bought into this team. It's a sort of social outlet and a great way of spending the day. And they're tug out and all red gear and different tops. And They have a massive following at the moment. It could all change, but hopefully we'll keep them happy.
What's the gut feeling telling you, Dr. Con? You walk into the camp this week. Do you think you're looking at 2025 All-Ireland champions?
I'll be disgusted if we're not. I've had two experiences with 87, 88 in football. We lost both years. In hurling in 82 and 83, we lost both years. Very painful experience. So I'm hoping they'll make up for it all this time.
Yeah. And you remember the defeats more so than the victories, no doubt.
Oh, they hurt badly. Yeah. Did you?
And 82, 83, would that be on a level above last year, for example, or 2013?
Well, 82 we were well beaten, but 83 we could have won.
Yeah.
Last year was a hard one to take.
Yeah.
Jimmy B's one 2013 was a hard one to take. You know, we were just beaten by a point in the last. Well, we drew the first day, beaten the second day. We thought we had it the first day, but we didn't. You get used to these things. You can't stay involved if you can't take it.
That's very true. I think there's a city out there and a county out there hoping to get used to the opposite of that over the next few years, and maybe someday will be the start of it. Dr. Con Murphy, a pleasure chatting to you as always. Thanks so much for coming to meet us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, we are here at St. Francis College, Rochestown. We have hightailed it across from our Dr. Con Murphy interview. Mick McCarthy has joined us in Cork City. Beautiful Cork weather.
The weather's come with us, Owen. Yeah, I didn't stop the wipers all the way down, but delighted. I always thought they'd moved the All-Ireland hurling final into the heart of summer. I've always been a big fan of it, as you know, like split seasons, great for the club players and all. But the best thing is you get the best of the weather for the All-Ireland finals. So, here we are in beautiful Cork.
We still have time for it to change dramatically over the next couple of days. You're buying into the whole Cork mania.
I'm getting into the Corkness. We've been here for a couple of hours now, and it's a bit mad. And we're at like the world's biggest hurling wall here as well. So I'm feeling the need to get wristy and swing a few balls. But those days are behind me. But we can still look forward to it. It is actually a bit manic. There's so much red and white everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's absolutely extraordinary here. The reason why we've come to this particular part of town is because we want to meet up with Alan Cadogan. Alan, it's good to see you. This alley here is presumably a place where you spent plenty of time. I know you're a teacher in the school here, but did you still get in the odd session during your playing days here?
Yeah, I do. Not too far from my home place, only about 5 minutes up the road. So past pupil here, no teaching here. So I have good memories here both as a student, as a teacher, but also as a player. And it's, as you can see here, you look around you, the weather mightn't be as favourable today, but it's very peaceful and tranquil, and I like coming down here, getting the odd session, and yeah, certainly.
It's a place with a lot of mood about it, this school, especially when there's no pupils here. You could almost say there's kind of like a haunting energy about it. Like, you definitely won't forget being here.
No, certainly. It's kind of a bit of a feel like a Harry Potter kind of vibe, that medieval kind of thing. So July will be very quiet. There'll be no students, obviously. Staff are on holidays, so management are on holidays as well. So it's a bit eerie, right? But it's nice, even, as I said, to come down here, clear your head sometime, do a bit of hurling session. And as I said, I've many memories inside here.
It's definitely peaceful. You sadly can't get the rhythm going here today. You've injured yourself a small bit.
Yeah, a little bit of an injury, hand injury there on Tuesday night, but a few stitches, but nothing that I'm used to. But hopefully I'll be alright in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, a few stitches, be grand is the motto. We're going to get out of here, out of the rain. We'll go for a chat in a minute. Right then, Alan Cadogan, what does a week like this feel like for you? being somebody who's retired so recently and is still so close, no doubt, to a lot of these players. Do you get second-hand joy and buzz for them?
Yeah, look, I think you ask any player that stepped away and who's retired maybe in the last year or two, or from any sport, they'll always say maybe the first couple of years might be hard, and it's different now being a spectator. Obviously, I bumped into a couple of lads obviously this week, just out and about, and they're probably trying to keep their head down. Whereas I suppose as a spectator, you're probably engaging in the buzz and the atmosphere. And as you've been down here in Cork today, and you can feel that atmosphere building nicely towards Sunday. So I suppose it certainly is different as a supporter. Probably can enjoy the build up, shall we say, and looking forward to Sunday as a supporter looking on. But certainly, I suppose when you step out of that bubble, shall we say, you do miss kind of the build up in a week like this.
I presume last year would have been a touch more difficult.
Yeah, it definitely. Look, I think if I said it wasn't difficult, I think I'd be lying to you. And I think, that kind of any person that comes from a high performance environment, let's say, that is retired, of course, it's going to be hard for them maybe watching on. And, you have those questions maybe certainly last year when the lads got to the Ireland front, geez, did I step away too soon? But I suppose, look, I was content with my decision, and you can't look at it, go if, buts and maybes. But look, there's no denying it was hard to look on last year, but at the same time, you've shouldered with many of those fellas for years, and you'd be hoping that they got over the line last year, but more so now this year that you'd hope so.
You'd have been a couple of years older than some of the lads who came so close last year and continue to be the leaders this year. Did you see within them a generation that you thought could finally break the now 20-year duck, and this would be a crop of Cork fellas who would be one of the great teams?
Yeah, certainly. Like 2019 Tipperary won it, and they say it's a famine. Imagine being 20 years down here in Cork. It's unthinkable really. And I chased that dream for 10 or 11 years, and so have a new crop of young players, but also that young players that have come through the under 20 or under 20s with Pat, let's say, like Brian Hayes, Alan Connolly, for example, Kieran Joyce, but then marrying that then with, let's say, the more experienced fellas of Seamus Harney, Patrick Horgan, Conor Lehan, Damien Cahalane. So there's a very good mix there, and you have the fellas obviously maybe that are there for the last 7 or 8 years, the Darragh Fitzgibbons, the Mark Colemans, Tim O'Mahony's. So there's a real good mix there within that Cork squad. But on the flip side of that, I imagine Liam Cahill's probably thinking exactly the same up and tip with that group of players and a lot of those under 20s, let's say, that have come through their system in the last 2 or 3 years.
So when you first come onto the Cork hurling scene, it's JBM on the cusp of taking this team to greatness. It felt at that point, I know Clare were champions in 2013, that one of those two teams was going to come back in the next few years and win another title in Clare's position, or in a Cork situation, get back to another All-Ireland. Did you ever think at that point that JBM final was going to be the high point for so many years?
Yeah, I suppose I was a young 19, 20-year-old in 2013 and was on the extended panel. And even, being on the extended panel and just watching, I suppose it was a great experience and great learning. Obviously making that breakthrough in 2014 and winning the Munster title against Limerick. And, you were thinking maybe as a panellist that year in 2013, you were thinking, God, this will come around every year. But it doesn't. And, you ask anyone, it's hard to get to finals, and it's even harder to win finals. And it's no different for Cork or Tipperary now on Sunday. But, again, whether it be Pat Ryan or JBM, for example, they had the same ambition to bring Liam McCarthy back to Leeside. And I think the Cork public, they're looking forward to Sunday. There's a great expectation there. Cork are back where they wanted to be based off last year. I suppose when that group of players and that management team left Croke Park last year, they were probably thinking, we need to get back here again, and thankfully they have, and now hopefully they can go one step further now next Sunday. And
it'll be absolutely no consolation if they don't win on Sunday, but from a cold standpoint here and from a relatively neutral standpoint, that's a good step forward, that it is back-to-back All-Irelands. Like, Pat Ryan is not going to accept that as an excuse if they don't come out in the winners' enclosure on Sunday. But putting back-to-back finals together isn't nothing either.
No, it's not. And, Pat's a very straight talker. He's a people person. He's a players person. Like, he came out before the All-Ireland semi-final against Dublin and reiterated that point of that 4-week gap, that if they were beaten, that wasn't going to be an excuse. It's great to be back into an All-Ireland final back-to-back, but fast forward 5, 6, 7 years' time, no one's going to remember fellas who got back-to-back All-Ireland finals unless you go on and win it. And, Tipperary the same. They haven't won an All-Ireland since 2019. Obviously 20 years, 2005 for us. So getting back to an All-Ireland final back-to-back is great, but knowing that group of players and that management, and I suppose that hunger, and that's the word that's being thrown around a lot, that, that hunger has to be there from Cork. Getting there last year, getting beaten by a puck of the ball after extra time, for example, that hurt that group of players, and that hunger has to be there now for Sunday to get over the line.
It's few and far between the amount of really big All-Ireland Championship games between Cork and Tip. Brilliant Munster Championship games. But you mentioned 2014 there, after Cork had won the Munster title, that Championship, All-Ireland Championship clash with Tip in the semi-final that year. What do you remember from that day? Because it was a day where Tip obviously were on the ascent.
Yeah, I can remember that game, that All-Ireland semi-final against Tipperary vividly. I suppose it was the old system where you had that 4 or 5 weeks after the Munster final to your All-Ireland semi-final against Tip, and Tip really kind of annihilated us that day. I can remember, especially on their puckouts, they really picked us off. So I suppose semi-finals are there to be won. Doesn't matter how you get there. But I can remember that year in 2014 how tough it was. Obviously, it was my first All-Ireland semi-final. And coming off the back of a Munster Championship win or a Munster final against Limerick, and getting into Croke Park, and that's where you want to be. Munster Championship is great, and I heard Tommy Dunn talk about there recently that the Munster Championship, the round robin games are great, and winning a Munster is great. But ironically, what you want to do is you want to get back into Croke Park, and you want to be in an All-Ireland semi-final, back into an All-Ireland final, and that's where Cork are now on Sunday.
Did you think your team got the best out of yourselves in Croke Park, or that you were a team suited to Croke Park?
Yeah, I think, I was saying to you there a while ago that the current squad of players that are there now, there's a real good mix, as I said, but there's 28 fellas, there's 30 fellas, there's fellas trying to make the 15, and not mind the 26. So the big difference between my time and the current group is that there's massive competition there, and Pat Ryan and his management team have a very difficult task to pick a starting 15, not alone then a 26 in that, and there's going to probably be 1 or 2 fellas who are going to have to miss out, and that's a difficult conversation for Pat and his management team to have with 1 or 2 of these players after giving so much throughout the year. But there's a massive competition there amongst the group, and we can see now how important that impact off the bench is. Especially we saw this year in the Munster final of Conor Lehan, Shane Kingston coming off. I think they hit 5 points between them. So having that impact is important. It's not about that starting 15. It's that team that finishes, and having those 3, 4, 5 fellas that can come off the bench and make that impact. And I think that's a big plus for Cork in the last maybe 2 or 3 years, that they're developing that squad depth, and it's a big thing. I suppose I notice now from being a spectator is that looking on, that you have that competition, you have those 3 or 4 fellas that you can spring from the bench. Maybe that wasn't there when I first started, maybe because we were quite limited.
Okay, fair enough. Now, we were just chatting as well about the school that's right in front of us here that we're sitting in, produces some amazing Cork hurlers and plenty of the younger lads in the squad as well. Can you run through the roll of honour from the school into this Cork All-Ireland team?
Yeah, so past pupils that are playing the weekend, Shane Kingston, my own club, would have went to school here. When I was doing my H-dip, he was walking towards me in the corridor calling me sir. So I was saying, I see him then down on club training on a Tuesday night laughing at me. So he'd be one past pupil. Alan Connolly is another one. So there's a good roll of honour here in the school, both hurling and football as well. Sean Powder that is representing the football as well. So then we have various players that are represented underage, minor, under 20, and club level at the highest level. So there's a good roll of honour. It's a big feeder school in Cork, maybe more so in football, maybe more so than hurling. But again, you can see from the surrounding, you're kind of not too far from the city, Cork City, but you're also out in the country then as well. So it's a perfect balance.
More football than hurling, is that a metaphor for yourself?
I had good days in football now, but hurling will always be my first love, and I tried to push fellas inside here. You can see in the ball alley trying to get the maximum use out of that then as well at lunchtime or after school. So they say hurling is number 1 in Cork, and you can see the buzz and the expectation and the colour and the bunting and the red and white that you've witnessed this week. So hurling will always be my number 1 here.
Is Owen the same?
You'd have to ask on that.
Yeah.
No, I won't ask. I won't answer that. I suppose he would have played more football maybe in hurling. Obviously, he cherishes that 2010 All-Ireland football medal that he has won. He chased that hurling medal, obviously, because that's the one medal that he doesn't have. But I'd imagine, look, he wouldn't say one over the other, because I'd imagine he'd have good memories in both in the football in 2008, 2009, 2010, that kind of area, that crop of footballers that came up. But equally then, he'd much joy then, obviously, in the hurling in these latter end of his career.
Was it a sibling rivalry or an inspirational sibling?
Oh, there's probably a bit of both. There's a good rivalry, good competition. To drive each other is a big thing. So as a young person growing up, 14, 15, 16, I suppose the big thing is seeing what it took to be an inter-county player. You've a lot of young kids now coming through the system in Cork, maybe with development squads. They may not have experienced what I've experienced, in the sense that I saw an older sibling go do the training, what was required regarding recovery, the level that it's gone, and even now it's gone to another level, inter-county hurling and football. So I was lucky in that regard of what was needed to be an inter-county hurler, and I was blessed in that. So there was certainly good competition and good rivalry, but also then there was an arm around the shoulder as well, kind of helping one along as you got older.
Because he would have understood exactly what you were going through when you first dipped a toe into inter-county games as well.
Yeah, definitely. And when you dipped a toe into inter-county especially a senior, when you're maybe that 19, 20, you have, let's say, that carefree attitude. Maybe, let's say, that some of the Tipperary hurlers are playing with now that have just come through the under 20 grade, whereas someone, let's say, who gets the end of his career, maybe 30, 31, 32, let's say, or that he's kind of pushing towards the end, there's a little bit more cautious in your play and stuff like that compared to a 19 or 20 year olds. So there's 7 years between us. So there was a good gap, but certainly plenty of advice that I took on board from Owen over the years.
I think you're spot on there about the tip lads, especially the young lads. This brilliant youthfulness is only going to be there once for them, and it's not going to be an every season thing. And I don't know, I keep going back to Sheahan O'Donoghue's goal in the semi-final. It was just a brilliant moment of an unheralded substitute coming on still early into his inter-county career and produces something completely wonderful. I'm not sure if a 30-something-year-old would have done the same thing or made the same decision.
Yeah, and as you said there, a 19-year-old that carefree attitude, probably, not that he didn't know what he was doing, but it was probably just off the cuff completely. And he probably didn't realise what he achieved in that, getting Tipperary back into another round final. But that comes, I suppose, maybe with age at 19, 20, that carefree attitude, going out just hurling, not having any pressure compared to, let's say, someone maybe who's 29, 30, 31, 32, who maybe there's a little bit more expectation in that. So look, there's pros and cons obviously to that. So, again, that could work in Tip's favour on Sunday. But then again, you have that experience in the Cork squad then as well. So you kind of have to marry the two together.
You mentioned Alan Connolly coming through this school. He's having an unbelievable season. What a player.
Oh, yeah, what a player. 23, 24, I think he is. So, again, plenty of years left in him. Has that carefree attitude as well. Obviously can raise a green flag. You saw what he did in the All-Ireland semi-final, getting a hat-trick. But it's just not him. I think it's that versatility of that Cork full forward line, but also the out the field as well, that supply a ball that's coming into him. I think I read a stat that in 6 games, the Cork full forward line have scored 12 goals and 68 points in 6 games. So, that's, a lot of people will look at that and go, God, it's the full forward line, but it's what the work is going out the field as well. And I'd imagine the 3 lads inside of Patrick, Brian and Alan, did reiterate those points as well. But certainly Alan's having a great season, and hopefully long may it continue.
Do you feel that hurling is ever so slightly pivoting towards a reliance on goals once again? Because Limerick's method was certainly shoot often, shoot from range, get your 31, 32 points.
Yeah, and you would have heard Limerick reiterate that point, that you wanted to hit that 30 mark, and kind of, the most teams that do the most shooting maybe will win a game. And it's kind of after going away from that a little bit, we're seeing maybe a lot more now of that long ball, more so than the short passing game. And it's probably paying dividends for Cork at the moment. You can see, I suppose, the aerial threat that Brian Hayes is causing on top of the D, and the impact that he is making in terms of games and the goals that he's scoring, but also the assists that he's doing as well. So again, maybe, I suppose, again, it goes back to kind of marrying those two together, that again, keeping the scoreboard ticking over. But you can see, I suppose, from over this season especially, how ruthless Cork have been. But also on the flip side, you can see from Tipperary as well how ruthless their full forward has been, and they've got 9 goals in 7 games they've got. So it certainly will be an interesting battle between the two full forward lines on Sunday.
On Pat Ryan, he seems like an incredible man, and he seems completely loved by everybody in that camp and everybody in this county. I don't think there'll be too many people in any of the other 31 counties who would begrudge him in All-Ireland either.
No, certainly not. I mentioned there earlier that, look, he's a very straight talker. He's a people person. He's a player's man. When I was there, he was like that. from what I'm reading and hearing from players, that the players adore him and love him. Obviously, Pat has had these struggles over the last year or two, for example, from his health, and obviously the passing of his brother Ray. So again, look, he had his challenges, but he always used to say when I was involved that we weren't making the sacrifice to play hurling. It's the people away from it, your family, your girlfriend, your wife, your partner. These are the people who are making the sacrifices, that coming down on a Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, this is something that we enjoy doing. And Pat, knowing Pat, he enjoys doing that. He enjoys getting the most out of people. There seems to be a really good bond amongst the group from both players and management, and you know, the lads are playing for Pat, and you know, there's no bullshit with Pat. He doesn't believe in dummy teams. He doesn't believe in naming someone and then not starting him. So he's a very straight talker, and he said there'd be no excuses if Cork are beaten on Sunday, because that's the kind of character he is.
He seems to be constantly progressing himself as well. Like he was saying last week that they've Gary Keegan in working with the players. And it's not just for the players. He's actually done a couple of sessions with Gary himself. Maybe sessions is too formal a word to put on it, but he certainly had conversations with Gary. That surely rubs off on the players as well. If you see a manager trying to improve himself and also trying to engage in this, it certainly sells it a little bit more to maybe any players on the fence about sports psychology.
Yeah, it does. And, you know, sports psychology is becoming more and more common now in teams. Gary first started working with us in 2017, I think it was, when Kieran Kingston brought on him. So, there's a good cohort of that group that would know Gary quite well. He stepped away for a year or two, obviously, but got back involved then as well. Pat got him involved when he first took over. And, you know, Pat's not the type of manager who'll stand still. He's always looking to develop and improve. He spoke about kind of letting maybe the standards drop maybe with that 3-week gap for the Limerick game and the round robin game. So, you know, he said that was unacceptable from his point of view and the management point of view. So, you know, he's looking anyway to develop himself as a manager as well. I think I read that he was managing more rather than leading.
Yes.
Gary was saying that, and I just read that during the week. And, you know, as I said there, Pat is the type of fella who's always trying to learn, always trying to develop. You know, you could, he'll be watching other sports, for example. What can he take from NFL or soccer or rugby that he can transfer into the GA or into Cork GA as well? Because he's a hurling man. He wants Cork to do well, and you know, he has that connection, as you said there, will go with the fans and the supporters. But he's always trying to develop and working with Gary, and that wouldn't be out of norm. You know, I remember Kieran Kingston would have worked closely with Gary as well, of different ways to improve, or because you have to remember, he's not just managing 15 players, he's managing a whole organisation of probably about 50 or 60 people, between 30 players. You have backroom staff then as well, you have county board, you have media. So, you know, there's a lot of pressure in that, and it's like managing an organisation or a company. And I think, you know, Gary's one of the best in the business, and I'm sure he's guiding Pat in the right way.
Did you get much out of Gary yourself when you were there?
Yeah, certainly would. You know, I remember meeting Gary. Sometimes we'd have maybe a team session maybe at 9 o'clock in Páirc Uí Chaoimh or in Fota, and trying to get into Gary was the hardest part. That he'd always travel down maybe the night before, and I tried to meet him on a one-to-one and try maybe an hour before we had the team session. And you know, his CV speaks for himself. He's currently down under with the Lions squad, and you know, I enjoyed speaking to him and engaging in him, and I suppose trying to get the most out of me. That was the big thing. It wasn't more how to improve your touch or your striking or your handling. It was more the psychological side of things, of trying to maximise the most out of you when you get onto the field. And I would have worked closely with Gary over the years, and as I said, look, he's the best in the business.
A couple of last questions for you. Do you remember much about 2005?
Funny enough, I was saying to some people that I teach here in Rochestown, and I might be talking to some of the students. I'd be saying, you know, last time Cork won All Ireland 2005, Sean O'Halpine, and they'd be looking at you like you're an alien. Yeah. You have to remember their age and when they were born, and you kind of have to go, whoa, they can't remember last Cork winning All Ireland last, or Sean O'Halpine lifting Liam McCarthy. I can remember vividly. I can remember 2004 getting beaten by Kilkenny. I remember sitting in the Cusack for that. But small little memories, obviously, from 2005. So, but 20 years is a long time.
It certainly is. It also feels like this beautiful irony that we're sitting here in one of the most peaceful places in Cork, when all the talk around Cork over the last few weeks has been, how do they quieten down the noise? How do they manage the hype? What do you do if you're in the camp and the hype question comes up? Do you just say, let's ride this and let's enjoy this? Or do you kind of have to go to, I don't know, some version of a place like this and seclude yourself away?
I think it's probably a mixture of both. I probably would have been the person to maybe avoid it.
Yeah.
Whereas now I think the narrative has maybe changed, that Pat was saying, try to embrace that. Yeah, Cork are favourites. Everyone expects Cork to win. They're back where they wanted to be. There's huge talk, huge buzz. The gravy train is going. Everyone wants to jump on. But Pat, I remember I was reading something that Pat was saying that, they have to embrace it. The players know that exists, and there's no point maybe denying it or shying away from it. No, they're not going to be going out into the public saying this publicly. But again, they probably have to embrace that as well. They have been the farm team this season, and there's no denying that. So he's trying to marry the two, as I keep saying, that you want to this week you probably want to keep out of the limelight, go through your normal business, and that's where I think Gary will come in. Even though he's down under, that they'll be still doing Zoom calls. I would have read that maybe last week, maybe, or this week. Just it's a normal week, whatever you do. If you're in school, you're in college, whatever, work, but not to change your routine, not to maybe go into your shell as much. Look, embrace the hype. You're back in another final. They're not getting paid for it. There's no pressure, so this is something that you have to enjoy, because certainly these days, it's only when you finish up and you're a spectator, you go, Jesus, yeah, I'd like to be part of this, and they have to enjoy it and embrace it.
I presume you're calling a Cork win on Sunday?
Yes, I'm going to call a Cork win. I think based on what I've seen this year from Cork, I did say to a friend of mine that Tipperary will have a good say in this championship, I think, after the first game, and Tip have been building really, really nicely. I like Liam Cahill as a manager. I like what he's about. He's bringing through a lot of these young Tipperary players. No one expected them to be where they are, probably. So they're probably maybe a little bit ahead of their time in maybe a year or two. But they're probably not thinking that, All-Ireland finals don't come around that often. So they'll be looking for a big performance for them on Sunday. The big thing, I suppose, with Tipperary is that, can they stay in the game? We saw what happened with Dublin, for example. Cork had 3 goals in the first 15 minutes. Tip can't leave that happen. They started slow against Kilkenny. Took them a while to get into it. But I think, look, if Tip have any hope of Sunday and staying with Cork, they got to stay in the fight. And that's one thing that I noticed about Tip this year. They stayed in the fight, even down in Páirc Uí Chaoimh when they had a man sent off in the round robin game. They kept doing what they were trying to do, which kind of impressed me. Now, even though Cork ran out 7 or 8 points winners that day, but still, based on what I've seen this year, I have to fancy Cork maybe by 5 or 6 points.
Alan, good to catch up. Thanks a million for allowing us to hop the ball into the school here on a beautiful, peaceful summer's day, and enjoy Sunday. Alan Cadogan, thanks a million. Right then, you're very welcome back to our special show here from Cork. Our trip through Cork has come from Killa all the way through to Douglas GAA. Eddie O'Hare is a man who's very familiar around these parts. He's a man who's familiar around some of the greatest sporting theatres in the world, not least Croke Park, where he hangs up his camera this weekend after a magnificent career behind the lens. It's great to chat to you, Eddie. How are you keeping?
Thanks, Owen. I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, grand. Next Sunday, my God, it's going to be the final day. I've officially retired from the office, from the Examiner and Echo, on the 5th of July, which was the Cork-Dublin game. Grand day out, fantastic day out, a very special day. President came down and wished me well and congratulated me on 46 years of taking pictures. And then I kind of got an inkling that I would be covering the final. So the final day out for the Examiner and Echo is in Croke Park on Sunday, the All-Ireland final. and hoping maybe a Cork win.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. Jarlath had some nice things to say, did he?
Yeah, he did. He surprised me. He had a lot of facts and figures when I started back in 1979, and just said a nice few words. He said, "I know you're a sportsman." He kind of mentioned. He said that I had an interest in soccer, and so do I. Says Jarlath. I said, "Yeah," and he thanked me for all the years of covering sport, and I told him, look, I love covering the game, but I also mentioned the big thing about covering the game was the fans. Covering the fans was a huge thing, and which was always the way, whether it was in World Cups or everyday stuff from a local match to an All-Ireland final, the fans are the big thing.
Yeah.
Huge thing for me, like, yeah.
And maybe it's tough to do it in written media, but certainly from a radio standpoint, it's always been something that I've gotten a great kick out of, as well as talking to fans and seeing the energy, particularly when you're abroad and there's this congregation of Irish fans together. The colour I'd say you've got in those scenarios must be unbelievable.
My God, yeah. Especially, I suppose, you know, when you go to foreign parts, especially, okay, we go back to the World Cups of 94 and 90. The big thing is the fans made an effort to go to these places, and what you did with the fans is you photographed them on the streets, photographed them on the beaches, and we'd say, for example, in Palermo, if you were in New York, you photographed them on the streets of New York with the buildings of New York. It's grand to photograph them in the stadiums, but you try to get them on the streets with the backdrop of the stadiums, with policemen, just to show that they were in the country and stuff like that. And fans are the huge thing, huge.
These Cork fans, they must be an exciting bunch to photograph.
Oh, for God's sake, they're magnificent. Yeah, they're passionate. I suppose it's a long wait for the fans. 20 years is a long time, but they've followed them to thick and thin. The following in this year's championship was phenomenal from day one in Páirc Uí Chaoimh against Tipperary, and then back up to Clare and back up to Limerick, and against Waterford to fill the stadiums. And the colour was absolutely magnificent. And I mean, you could stop the fans on the street and do the colour there, and then even just to get shots of them in the stadium, off-beat photograph, which I love doing. In other words, when they're caught unawares.
Yeah.
You just kind of, even last Saturday, or 2 weeks ago, when the lads got the goals, Brian Hayes and Alan Connolly, you just turn around and you get the fans, and they got one great photograph of father, probably, and son and wife, and all lifting the kids up in the air. Brilliant stuff. Brilliant.
Your catalogue of photographs is absolutely unbelievable, and it's so wide-ranging that funneling this solely through the prism of Gaelic games doesn't do you as a photographer justice. But that's what we might have to do here, given the week that's in it, and Cork GAA being front and centre. We have 4 Cork GAA-related photographs in front of us here. We will describe them to you, to the radio listener at home. I'm just going to pick the first one up here, just kind of arbitrarily here, which looks like it's from the year 2007. So what's going on here?
In that photograph was the, what do they call it, third skate at the time. The two teams came out together, Clare and Cork came out together, and literally as they were coming out, I don't think that the team photograph's done at this stage. I think nowadays you get the team photograph done straight away and then they go out and warm up. But the two teams came out together, and the next thing is they're hammering at one another, pulling and dragging and kept. And it went on for a few minutes before the game started, before they lined up for the national anthems and stuff like that. Yeah, and I think even in that photograph, it's the stuff going on in the background as well.
You can see Sean Ogue just about, and the back right there going up against somebody.
Yeah, and Sean is normally very reserved type of player in his own way. Tough man, but and then John Gardner, and I think it's Jerry O'Grady from Clare. Just close up, and we were standing there. I mean, we literally had the short one. I suppose in terms of for the ordinary punter, short lens, which is just a normal lens. So you're going to do the team photograph. So we're right in top of them, literally right in top of them when we're doing the photographs.
Nothing like a schmozzle to get the blood going when you're that close to them.
My God, you're nearly taking part in it yourself. I suppose if they swung the hurley close enough to you, you'd get hit.
Yeah. There's a couple more Cork legends here to our right-hand side. Here is the great Brian Corcoran here up against Galway. The year is 2004, 2005.
2005.
2005. This is the All Ireland final in 05.
From the final from 2005. Just a photograph of Brian in action. Probably one of the better ones in the day. Something, you get general action. I think there's a lot of stuff in that, and it makes for a good action photograph. And Brian won the All Ireland medal that day, and it's just one of the photographs from that occasion. Bar photographing the trophies and stuff like that. And I suppose the memories of that day is that the fans still came out to the pitch.
Yes.
So the place was surrounded at that time.
Yeah, he's one of the greats. These sort of things that you notice when you're looking at this, talking to somebody like you, is you start to notice his facial expression, and a very expressive man.
Oh my God, yeah. Brian was just passionate. What a player! My God, what a player! Whether it was for club and for Cork, he gave it his all. Definitely, yeah. One of the best. Yeah.
No helmets helps as well. I know it's for the best that they all wear them, but it's a real throwback.
Yeah. Just as you say, it was the other player in the photograph has the helmet, but I think it was optional at the time. But Brian, if I can remember something, that Brian didn't like wearing them.
Yeah.
No, I'm just even wondering, was it optional? Was it that it had fallen off? That's an interesting one. You bring it up there on. Yeah, funnily enough, yeah.
Yeah, they've lost a touch of individuality since they've become fully mandatory. Again, I'm not for 1 second suggesting that they shouldn't be wearing them or anything, but just from a pure personality standpoint.
Yeah, most definitely. And I think for us photographers, sometimes you if you're going to the games, especially the younger players, you don't know them, and you're photographing with the helmets, and then suddenly a fella takes off his helmet when you're doing a photo shoot, and you're going, is that what he looks like?
Yeah.
Or
who's he?
Who's he? Yeah. I suppose the great thing in Gaelic games is having the number on the front of the shirt is very identifiable for the players, so that when you're doing action photographs, you know the players straight away by the number on the front of the shirt, which is grand. But the helmets, unless somebody's got a distinctive helmet, they're very hidden, I suppose, in some ways. Yeah.
This next one now, I wouldn't have been able to pick this man out, or I wouldn't have been able to name him until you did. It's a very unique photograph, I think, of Timmy McCarthy, of Teddy McCarthy.
Timmy
McCarthy.
Yeah. Timmy, who was a member of that team as well, and the All Ireland, who won the All Ireland final back in 2005, which is 20 years ago. That's an actual photograph of him playing with his club, Castle Lions, and it's just, I think it shows the bend of the hurley, just a bit of action, somebody tackling, and he's full belt, clearing the ball and taking the full whack of the bent hurley on his hurley.
Yeah. Unbelievable, but I guess it's probably to do with the fact that I'd associate Timmy so much with the red and white, and seeing him in the green and gold. Sometimes with the club colours, you wouldn't always immediately cop it.
Yeah. So I mean, again, Timmy. We were talking there a while ago about distinctive faces, and I think you knew Timmy, big strong man as well, and a magnificent hurler.
The bent hurley is just a magnificent sight at the bottom of that photograph, and his eyes trained on the slitter. I mean,
just to get away, just to clear away, most definitely, yeah.
A broken hurley as well, I suspect, is something that you're pretty fond of when you catch that.
If you get it, if you get it.
Is that pure luck?
It's pure luck. You can get a sequence of photographs with the hurley broken. It used to be much more prevalent before breaking hurleys, but I don't know whether there's different ash. They seem to bend more. You don't get breaks as much.
No.
But before, you used to get an awful lot of breaks before in the action photographs. Yeah.
There's just one other photograph that we picked out of your gold mine that you brought along with you, and it's the Cork footballers. We were going to take with us here a high fielding shot, which was also beautiful, but what we went for here is another schmozzle, I think it's fair to say. So it's Seamus Moynihan and Aidan O'Mahony, and two Cork footballers there. And
that's one of the what's his name? I can't remember. Anyway, he's from West Cork.
It's not Masters, is it?
It's not Masters. No, that's not Masters. No. And I'm just wondering, is there a name in the back? No. Okay.
It just says Cork and Kerry players. Well, I'm sure somebody at home who's watching this on YouTube will be able to figure it out.
Yeah.
For the radio listener, it's just it's two lads with brown hair, fairly normal looking lads, but they're furious here as David Coldrick, the referee, or the linesman even, David Coldrick, tries to get in and try and break them up. But again, it comes back to the idea.
Passion of the Cork Kerry passion between the two teams, and I suppose that it's there to stay.
Yeah.
I think even in this year's championship, you had Shamazel at halftime between Cork and Kerry at halftime as well.
Yes.
Two teams broke out, so that's probably it's never ending.
Yeah,
It's never ending. Yeah.
You are obviously into a whole wide range of sports. Soccer is one of your big passions as well. And being from Cork, being a photographer, two men certainly come to mind, in Dennis Irwin and Roy Keane. They've been a big part of your catalogue.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah. Back in the day, we got very close to Roy. Back in the day when he was playing with Rockmount, and then when he moved to Cove Ramblers, we photographed him in Cove Ramblers. I went and got photographs of him when he was leaving Cove Ramblers. We then went to Nottingham because we had a great rapport with players. We used to go to England and photograph all the Cork players in England. Then we went to Keane in Nottingham. It was the first time out there when he was staying in the digs behind the stadium. We photographed him in the digs. We photographed him with the landlords. We did shots of him there. And then later, a year or two later, when he had moved to his own premises, kind of a farmhouse outside Nottingham, we photographed him there, serving us tea, wearing the Irish cap, serving tea with his record collection. No problem doing the photographs. And then later that night, Forest played Spurs in a League Cup match, and we got photographs of him with Brian Clough underneath the stadium as well, I guess. So that was a nice touch. And then the Dennis Irwin thing, again, we went over to Dennis Irwin, and we got close to him. I photographed him with his family. I photographed him at his house, and then I suppose the be all was to photograph him at his testimonial, where we got invited in, and he brought me down. There was an exhibition. We did the exhibition, and then went to the testimonial match, which was a nice touch.
Absolutely. Many interactions with the two of them, always fairly inviting and welcoming when they needed to be.
Most definitely, yeah. They all got on very well. In fact, there's one photograph that the Irish Examiner brought out, a Sunday Examiner for the World Cup in '94. So I have one good photograph of the two lads reading the paper up in my bedroom in the hotel in Orlando. Yeah, so it was a nice touch.
Different times, isn't it, ringing up two world-class players and saying, come up to my hotel room?
Yeah, most definitely. Like, I mean, I think more times than not, they probably mightn't even talk to you nowadays, or just give you the hello and goodbye. But we were just friendly, and even when Brian Carey was part of Manchester United, I remember getting a photograph of them coming back from a game in Northern Ireland, so I got a photograph of the three of them together as a squad photograph at Dublin Airport. Pose, no problem.
Brilliant.
Lovely fellas, like, yeah.
Brilliant. The other thing that's worth mentioning here as well is your coverage of Italia 90, and you were there for the penalty shootout against Romania, Packie Bonner's famous save.
Yeah.
But curiously, you have a similar angle to the television, but on obviously at surface level as opposed to being up in the gantry, whereas most other photographers were behind Packie Bonner taking their photos. What happened to you?
Myself and Billy Stickland from the Info Agency decided, well, if he saves, or if there's a penalty save, we'll get him diving into the thing. So the two of us went up to the sideline. They couldn't stop us. It was too late to stop us. So we did photographs of them diving in to make the penalty save, the famous penalty save.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
The one other man I just wanted to mention was that we mentioned Timmy McCarthy, his namesake Teddy. There's a great photo of you watching the game, sitting side by side with him a couple of years ago. A good friend of yours.
Yeah, Teddy and myself got on very well. We'd met over the years, and it was just cordial. We just had good chats, and I remember going to it was about a year before he died, and the two of us, I was on a night off from taking photographs. Teddy would go to all the games, so the two of us sat down and had a good old chat about sport in general and watching the game and what do you think and everything. And no one's annoying us, or I'm not annoying him. We were just having a good old chat and grand, yeah.
It must be amazing when you get to this point in your career and you're reflecting. You don't have the same regret that a lot of people do, which is, geez, I wish I had more photographs of my career. It is literally your job to do it. You have all these mementos, these brilliant moments. Do you feel a greater sense of appreciation because of that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably looking at more stuff because of the retirement thing. That people were looking for photographs. What might pick out my best stuff. We did stuff for the Echo newspaper, and they asked me would I pick out my best. I don't think it was my best. I think it was just a cross section of photographs, whether it be basketball, horse racing, soccer, Gaelic football, hurling. I won't say it's my best, but it was just a cross section of ones that I suppose what I've always tried to do is get a photograph, and you're looking at, we were looking at some photographs there, like Timmy McCarthy with the bent hurley. I've always tried to get a photograph that the non-sporting person would look at, would turn around and say, "Wow, that's a photograph." Yeah, the guy in there might enjoy the photograph. The sports person would look at it, but I've always thought, let's get the person who's non-sporting will go and turn around and say, "Wow, that's a great photograph," and eye-catching. And I suppose going through the collection of stuff in the last few weeks, I'm going, "Wow, did I have that? Did I have that? Did I have that?" Yeah, it's been magnificent.
What position are you going to take up if Cork win the All-Ireland on Sunday? What's your angle going to be? Right under the Hogan stand?
Most definitely, yeah. Yeah, it would have to be. Yeah, it'll have to be. I've been thinking about that. Can I try something different, or do I take a gamble and go somewhere else? Do I go across the field? But I think I'll have to get in there to get, well, especially if Cork win. I suppose for the Cork newspaper, you want to get the Cork stuff. But no, it's not to say that if Tipperary win, we'll have to get the Tipperary side of things as well. But if for Cork winning, yeah, I'll have to get in, get the Pat Ryans, the selectors. Then you go in and get the players celebrating. Then you get the cup being presented, and then you get them with family and and most definitely probably finish off getting jubilant fans who are the most important. And yeah, the fans are a huge thing as well, part of that as well.
It'd be some note to go out on, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it most definitely will be.
Might have to bring out a whole new photo book on Sunday alone if they win.
Yeah, it's going to be special. Yeah, I look on the day. It's a job on the day. It's something that I've got to do. I've got requests from the office already to make sure that you get the team photograph beforehand, and then just if they win, you just go in and get the celebration photographs. You get the celebration photos and the fans, and I suppose on the day it's just part of your job. You do the stuff, and at the end of it, then you go, right, okay, that's it.
Well, listen, congratulations on an amazing career. We've barely scratched the surface on it. We might have to do another piece down the line with you on your a wider range of sports, I suppose. But congratulations, and best of luck on Sunday to the Rebels. Hope you enjoy some bit of it anyway, even though you're still very much on duty.
I will. I'll enjoy it. Yeah, I think I will. Yeah. I'll do again. I'll work away and do the photographs and do the best that I can, and yeah.
Thanks, Eddie.